Kuphina kuphe emakhaya amadolobheni asekomplasta khona lapho ubukela khona SABC 1 sanibukela bekunene sesifikile ke thina mavulandlela with this week's edition of Yilungelo Lakho silethela ke lohlelo lapho mahamba phambili SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. Mbukele ke, it's only weeks to go before we again exercise our right to elect our local councillors. Now, since the advent of the country's democracy, communities have frequently taken to the streets to protest against local leaders who fail to deliver and municipalities characterized by corruption, incompetence, and even financial ruin. Now, with the local government elections around the corner, how do you ensure that you vote for leaders who respond to the needs of the communities that they serve? Singachithile isikhathi asingene ke sithi shwi endzabeni yethu namhla. Most municipalities across South Africa are said to be struggling with negative audit reports, allegations of incompetence, corruption, and others in a state of collapse. Now, a report by research group Consulta paints a gloomy picture on levels of dissatisfaction by communities. But it's only just over a month before citizens can actually exercise their right to vote again, in the upcoming local government elections. Now, will this be a chance for many of you to put out councillors who do not deliver? That is the big question. Well, joining us today to discuss how citizens can take back their power through their vote in this coming election, let's welcome human rights activist, researcher and policy analyst Nkosikhulule Nyembezi. We're also pleased to be joined by Ineke Prinsloo, the head of customer insights at Consulta. A very good afternoon to you. Hi Nkosikhulule, let me welcome to the show.
It is my pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Let's get right into it, Nkosikhulule. The big question for the past 3 decades or so since South Africa, got independence is just how important is my vote to change the way I'm governed? Limqoka kanganani livoti lami kuze kuthi ke ngishintshe ngendlela ngiphethwe ngayo makhansela nabo mayor netiphatsimandla talelive.
It's very important because we live in a constitutional democracy. As South Africans, we commit ourselves through the preamble of the Constitution to say we, as South Africans, through our elected representatives, will work together to bring about a South Africa that is democratically governed, that takes its place in the international community, and where the potential of each person is realized. So this vote becomes very important in ensuring that we have a government of the people, by the people.
Yeah, speaking of a government of the people, by the people, njengoba wena ke Nkosikhulule umuntu lo sebenze nemiphakathi leminingi wenda ne research ngesikhathi lesithe. So ucabanga ukuthi ke the state of service delivery emiphakathini yethu injani? What's the state of service delivery at the local municipality?
It's a far cry. You can say the glass is half empty. It's a far cry because we have a lot of municipalities that are dysfunctional. We see this in the reports of the Auditor General, where we are shown that monies allocated to municipalities are misappropriated, where these monies are not accounted for. And yet, this is something that occurs year after year. We had hoped that when the Auditor General's powers were enhanced so as to be able to intervene not only at the end of the financial year, but also during the financial year to intervene to stop corruption and mismanagement, we hope that this would improve the situation. But that has not been the case. The situation of service delivery is bad and the glass is half full because we have over 60 municipalities that are dysfunctional where the national government has had to intervene to introduce administrators. And in a situation where you have administrators taking over municipalities, that slows down service delivery.
Nkosikhulule ke lesingeke sikufihle ukuthi lapho kude khona ke i-service delivery lapho ke kunenkohlakalo. Okay, the main reason why kunema service delivery issues inkohlakalo noma ke i-corruption. Kepha ke kuyangani lokuthi the crisis is not only in the big metros, kepha ke in the smaller towns, in the smaller municipalities. Kuyangani lo ngoba phela inkohlakalo akunenzaba ukuthi kuphi.
Kwentiwa yiyo le ndaba ye-cadre deployment. Sivile kwizondo commission kushiwo ukuthi imali zisetshenziswe budedengu ebuhulumenini iminyango kahulumeni ngayo indaba ye-cadre deployment. Bese kuba khona umbuzo oqhamukayo ukuthi ingabe iqembu elibusayo emikhandlwini nakweminye iminyango kahulumeni iyosithabatha nini izinyathelo zokuthi isule ezikhundleni laba kutholakala ukuthi basebenzisa imali budedengu. Manje siyabona ukuthi kukhona ukuhudula izinyawo kwiqembu elibusayo ngayo le ndaba le. Futhi ke siyabona ukuthi amakhono ayantuleka lapha emikhandlwini yomasipala kufakwa amakhansela angafundile nangaqeqeshiwe kahle ukuthi asebenzise izimali zomphakathi. Lokho kubange ukuthi izinto imali zingasebenziseki. Futhi ke kufanele ukuthi bona uhulumeni wonke ucoordinate uhlobo lokusetshenziswa kwezimali ngoba siyabona ukuthi lapho kufanele kusetshenziswe khona i-capital expenditure kwakhiwe amabhlorho kwakhiwe izikole nemigwaqo. Inkampani ezenza lokho zijwayele ukuthi ziye kumadolobha amakhulu lapho itenda nemali ezitholakalayo zinkulu bese zishiya ohulumeni ne-municipalities ezincane kungekho bani ongazibhekelela. Yinto leyo ke ekufanele ukuthi ibe kanti iyabhekelelwa uhulumeni ngokubanzi.
Yeah. Now Nkosikhulule asasikhuluma ke ngema examples noma ke tibonelo lapho ke insanvo yelinyenti inyatheleka department kanye ke namakhansela nabo mayor nabo bonke ke labavotelwe ukuthi ke banake abantu babo.
Izihlakalo zikhona kudliwe imali ye-COVID-19 kulonyaka mali siphuma kuwo 2020-2021. Lapho sibona khona laba masipala kuthathwa imali ekufanele ukuthi isetshenziswa i-COVID-19 iyothenga iy'moto zikanokusho. U-Auditor General usitshela ukuthi ucwaningo lakhe akakwazanga ukufinyelela kumasipala abaningi Free State ngayo indaba yokuthi abalethanga izincwadi ukuthi kuzocwaningwa. Zizinto ezihluphayo futhi ke laba baqashiwe i-municipal officials, municipal managers uthola ukuthi abahlali the full term 5 years e-office ngoba uma sekufike laba bakhethiwe the mayors, the speakers and the councillors bayabagudluza lapha yana babasuse. So i-lack of security of tenure, job security for municipal managers inkinga enkulu efunisa ukuthi la eSouth Africa asiqinisekise ukuthi laba basebenza njenge-municipal managers nabanye professional civil servants kumasipala they have got a job security engeke iziphazamisane uma sekukhethwe abantu abasha ukuthi mababe zi-councillors nabo mayor.
Uma ke Nkosikhulule nasesikhuluma ke ngelungelo lemuntu lekuvota uva ke lomnye umuntu athi mina ke ngidavotela iphathi lenyatiko iphathi yabo babe wami iphathi yabo gogo namkhulu wami ngeke nje kuvotela lenye iphathi lengayadi. So lokho ke kungenta ngicabanga ukuthi abantu abanengi abavoti ngengqondo kepha ke bavota ngenhlitiyo ukuthi ke ngiso lesizathu lesenda ukuthi ke ema municipalities abe kule state lekakuso nyalo. Iqiniso lelo baba.
Well, kuyahambelana nalokho kodwa ke akukho kubi ngokuvota ngenhlitiyo nokuvota ngomcabango ngoba kufanele kuhambelane. Okuhle nje nge-elections ka-2021 ukuthi sizobona sikhula isibalo sama-2000 Generation Z ekuyiwona ezelwe ngesikhathi sesikhululekile ekuwona angenayo i-history ne-background yokuphila ngaphansi kwengcinezelo. Manje uma sebekhulile ukuthi bangakwazi ukuvota kusho ukuthi sebekhulile ukuthi bangakwazi ukuvotelwa. So singabona amakhansela amasha youth ekungathi uma sebethabatha izinqumo uma sebengenile emkhandlwini kube kanti bazogcizelela kwizinto ezihambelana ne-development nezidingo nqangi zabantu abasha. So le generation gap isithembisa kakhulu ukuthi kungaba khona ushintsho eningizimu Afrika. Ingakumbi ngoba kusetshenziswa manje i-social media nezinye izinkundla zokuxhumana to leyo engathembisa ukuthi imiyalezo ne-election promises lezi zithembiso zizofinyelela ebantwini abasha ukuze bakwazi ukuthi baphume ngobuningi ukuthi bayovota futhi bavotele abanye abantu abasha kusokube kanti kukhona ushintsho eningizimu Afrika malunga nohlobo ekwendiwa ngalo izinto.
Alright, Nkosikhulule, please stay on the line. Ngicela ukuthi ubambe nalo mcabango lo sitawuqhubeka nenkulumo yethu emva kwaleli khefu. Bekunene namhlanje sikhuluma nge-service delivery njengoba ke nathi ukuthi ke live lonke liya elkhethweni labo masipala ngenyanga yeLweti, that is next month the 1st of November. Namhlanje sikhuluma ngekumcoka belivoti lakho ukuthi lingabe livoti lakho limcoka yini nekuthi ke batiphatha imandla nabo bonke lobavotelako batawulalela yini lokho lesibathumile ukuthi bakwende le emiphakathini la sibathume khona. Leli lungelo lakho asibambe lapho ke mbokole sizeshelele ngasetitolo. Please join us after this break. Asinamukele ke bekunene namhlanje sikhuluma ke ngebumcoka belivoti lakho, the power of your vote. Ukuthi ke 27 years later lisasemcoka ilivoti lakho njengoba nathi ke ukuthi ngenyanga yeLweti next month siya ke elkhethweni labo masipala at the local level. Ukuthi ke njengoba siyovota lelo voto lelo, how powerful is it? Namhlanje sina Nkosikhulule Nyembezi is a policy analyst, a researcher and human rights activist, did immense work, and he researched extensively on local level municipalities and as well as the public service issues at the local level. Ineke Prinsloo, she's the head of customer insights at Consulta. Consulta is that company that conducted research on a customer survey index, which revealed that it is extremely low, as most municipalities fail to deliver the basic service to the people. So once that line is up, we'll definitely be chatting to him. Mr. Nyembezi, siyathi ukuthi njengoba ke sesiya elkhethweni ke political parties campaigning are in full swing. Siyathi ukuthi bathamba basinqonqothela emntini yethu, basinika ema-food parcel, basinika ke netikipa. Sikuthathe yini lokho noma ke sikuyekele njengoba sathi ukuthi lamanye amakhansela they failed us. Leto tikipa nema-food parcel siwathathe noma nje sibafumbe ngato ke ebusweni babo.
Kufanele sizithathe ngoba siyazi ukuthi i-elections zisinikeza isikhathi sokuthi kube khona abasha, new candidates abafuna ukungena e-ofisini. So sibonile ukuthi kwi-political parties ne-candidates ezirejistile kukhona laba bafikayo okokuqala nqa new entrants. So kufanele siyilalele imiyalezo yayo. Ngicabanga ukuthi okubalulekile nokusemqoka ukuthi sive ukuthi izithembiso abalethayo zezithini na, because i-election manifestos, they contain election promises that are the ingredients of us giving the mandate to the politicians. What are we going to vote you based on? And we must engage them to ask those questions. What are you going to do about climate change? What are you going to do about making data available, electricity and those things? So we need to encourage interaction with election candidates, especially because there will be those who are coming for the first time.
Mhlambe ke Nkosikhulule lengizama ukukubuta nalengizama ukukuvisisa kahle ukuthi nangabe kufika i-councillor or a potential or an aspiring councillor ingiletheleke skipa nema-food parcel, the very same councillor lengamvotela iminyaka lesihlanu endlulile longazange angentela lutho, because I would feel insulted ukuthi livoti lami is worth a food parcel noma ke skipa. Usho ukuthi ngisathe leso skipa leso umuntu angethuka.
Akukho kuvimbayo ukuthi usithathe iskipa. Siyokhumbula ukuthi i-election campaigns zisinikeza ithuba lokuthi sixoxe nabantu, umbuze nawe ukuthi hayi wasuqhamuka after 5 years ngandikuvotele ngangabusakubona kwendiwa yini. So kufanele ukhulumisane naye uzobona ukuthi yiphi into ebangela ukuthi azofuna ivoti lakho khona ngalo selesi sikhathi salonyaka. Kodwa uma sekufika usuku lokhetho, uma usuwedwa lapha kwi-ballot paper, kwi-voting stations, usuphethe i-ballot paper, kulapho kuthabatha khona isinqumo sokuthi ngibalalele bonke, ubandakanya nalo ebekade se-ofisini for 5 years, manje sengikhetha ukuvotela bani. So we encourage i-political tolerance, we encourage ukuthi interaction, freedom of expression, bese uthatha an informed decision ngosuku lokhetho.
Nako-ke bengifuna ukuva ke Nkosikhulule ukuthi nangabe ukhuluma nge-political tolerance ukuthi ke cha asikhulume sivumelane ke kuloko lesikhuluma ngako, kepha ke nasengivota tabe kungimjwi lapha ku-voting booth, but ke ngithathe whatever ke labanginika kona. In terms of political interactions, yini lekumele ukuthi sikulalele ke nabafika ke endlini yami bangqongqothela labantu bathi bafuna ngibavotele? What are the kind of conversations that we should be having with these people, and even these promises labathi bafuna ukungentela kona, yini lekumele ukuthi ngikuvume noma ke ngingakuvumi noma ngikuthathe noma ke ngingakuthathi?
Hey, kuhambelana nendawo le uhlala kuyo ngoba i-priorities zabantu ziyehluka. Ukuba khona kwemithuba emisebenzi kubaluleke kakhulu. Ukuba khona kwezempilo, ukulungiswa kwemigwaqo, amanzi, nakho konke kubalulekile. Zonke ezinto ziphansi kohulumeni basekhaya. Okakhulu nje okukhona kulonyaka okwehlulayo kuneminyaka edlule yiyo into ye-climate change. Ngoba siyazi ukuthi izulu liyashintsha i-climate, imvula ayisani ngesikhathi sayo, ozamcoka baningi, ukudla akusaphumi ngesikhathi sako. Kufanele basho ukuthi i-councillors zizoyilungisa kanjani lonto. I-recycling ne-handling of i-solid waste, udoti nemfucuza ekhona endaweni esiphila kuzo bazoyilungisa kanjani. I-plastic zigcwele yonke indawo, ungcolile, ingaba bazoyilungisa kanjani leyo ukulungelelana ne-environment yethu. Yebo, isemqoka kakhulu indaba yokuba khona kwamathuba emisebenzi. Amathuba emisebenzi kufanele abe khona ngahambelana ne-green economy, ukuthi siyeke ukusebenzisa amandla kagesi, asebenzisa ugesi ongcolile. Kufanele manje simuvele kusetshenziswa kogesi okhiqizwa ngomoya, okhiqizwa lilanga, nazo zonke izinto ekuthiwa yi-renewable energy sources, ngoba siyabona ukuthi impilo isiyashintsha. So zizinto ekufanele sikhulume ngazo noceba bethu.
Okay, Nkosikhulule Nyembezi, please stay on the line. I'll touch base with you in just a moment. But for now, let's also welcome Ineke Prinsloo. She's the head of customer insights at Consulta, which conducted the survey on the customer satisfaction index. A very good afternoon to you, Ineke. Thank you so much for joining us. As you have conducted this research last year, what are the major findings that came out of it?
A very good afternoon, and thank you for having us on the show. Of course, you know, if I listen to the previous caller, it's about having that dialogue and having that conversation in leading up to the elections. Just a step back, in terms of the citizen satisfaction, we do this independently. It's the largest independent survey in the country, and it's really about getting that voice of citizens into a collated research that we give back to stakeholders. Major findings, and we do this research at the moment with the 8 main metros, and what we do see is that on a benchmark that is internationally used, our metros have not performed that well. So even the metros, even Cape Town, eThekwini and Ekurhuleni, that is the best on the benchmark last year, fall short from what the best in the world is across the world when we do these kind of benchmarks. And really, second thing that we see is that if we think about COVID, and there's so many publications and over the last 18 months that we have been bombarded with COVID, but there's still a fallout in terms of COVID and what our citizens are expecting from our local government. And it's down to basics. Make sure that I am safe and secure and I'm able to earn an income and look after my loved ones. And it translates into basic services that citizens really are expecting from the local governments.
Now, the people in the different demographics that you've profiled, I suppose they've got different expectations from their leaders and their councillors. So what are these expectations, or are they similar perhaps? I mean, the people in the different classes, in the different racial classes, in the different age groups, and those maybe who are educated or not, are the expectations similar?
In terms of the demographics for the study, as I said, we do it across the 8 main metros, and it's not intended as a census, but we certainly have a representative sample of different people from the different metros. So we make sure that the results include a good representation of the demographic composition in the different metros. But to come back to your question, it doesn't matter what my income, my level of education, or even my outlook in life is. It's actually down to the same thing. And it talks to what is the title of the program. It's my right to basic services. Clean water, garbage removal, having roads that's being looked after, and making sure there's neat and clean parks so that I can spend time with my family, making sure that I have access to electricity. Those 5 things makes up 75% of what are key drivers and expectations for citizens across South Africa, regardless of demographics, regardless of education or income level.
Ineke, I'm actually glad that we have you on the show this afternoon because there's so much that we could discuss, perhaps for issues relating to service delivery at the local level and the fact that, we want to know whether citizen expectation outweighs the actual public service, the delivery of services. Please stay on the line. We'll touch base with you after this break. The power of your vote. Just how important is your vote as we prepare to cast our ballots on the 1st of November. So bheke nanga emakhansela latawufuna ke kuniphakela ingqwangqwa ilanga selishonile ngoba phela ingqwangqwa imnanzi ekuseni bekawuphi lo muntu ilanga lonke sekafuna kusiphakela nje umdoko ilanga seliyawudirahla kunina namhla ke benene kuloko esikhuluma ngako siseke please stay on the line and we'll definitely be touching base with you and our guest in a moment. Leli Yilungelo Lakho. Welcome back. Yilungelo Lakho, it's your right. Those participation numbers are on your screens right now. 011-714-6918, 011-714-6919. You can also catch us on our Facebook platforms. Your vote is your power. But is it really? Is my vote really my power? Can I use my vote to change my circumstances, to change my family circumstances, and to change, the lives of those around me? That's what we're discussing today. We are joined by Ineke Prinsloo, the head of customer insights at Consulta Research Group. They conducted research about, the customer satisfaction index, which showed at diabolical levels as most municipalities failed to deliver services. Nkosikhulule Nyembezi is a policy analyst, a researcher, and a human rights activist. He did so much work and so much research at the local level and as well as the public service delivery issues. Now, Nkosikhulule, njoba sathi ukuthi ke bantu abaningi ke sebatsinekile ngemaphathi lebawavotele the phambilini kuze ukuthi ke abamelele at councils noma ke abamelele at government level. Kuthi kukhona ke labasa decide ukungena as independent candidates noma ke batimele bona bangene in their own personal capacities. So can we expect better and improved services from independent candidates?
Oh yes, of course, because independent candidates do not have the constraint that is brought about by political parties through their deployment committees, through allegiance to the executives in the national headquarters. So independent candidates are closely linked to the communities on the ground and are most likely to account to those communities to ensure that their priorities, their needs are taken into account. We know that in the Zondo Commission, one of the things that was mentioned was that some councillors use the money from the municipalities to support the political party they belong to. So independent candidates are likely to bring a fresh air onto that. And again, the other thing has to do with the fact that we need to realize that the right to vote and the right to stand for elections belong to individuals. It's not the right of the party. It is the right of individuals. So we hope that independent candidates can help us. Last time, political parties, the opposition, they didn't help. They went onto a coalition to unseat the dominant ANC. But in those coalitions, be it in the Nelson Mandela Metro, be it in Tshwane or Johannesburg, they didn't deliver what voters had expected to say it would be a change from being governed by the ANC.
But would it be fair, Nkosikhulule, to expect so much from independent candidates? Because we know that taking over a party that has failed to deliver and trying to right the wrongs of that particular party or the previous party that was in power would take years to do. And independent candidates, they're working independently as it suggests. So would it be too fair to expect so much from them? And if they don't deliver, would it be fair to be too hard on them?
Not at all, because we must realize that once a public representative is elected onto a legislative body, they cease to represent their narrow party interests, be it that of a political party they belong to, or in terms of what they had stood for as an independent. When they sit in council, they become public representatives and they take decisions based on that. So to the extent that we might have a large number of independent candidates sitting in council, it means when there are decisions to be taken as to what needs to be done about public monies, about meeting the local needs, local economic development and so forth, they will be able to apply their minds and take a decision that is appropriate, not necessarily being influenced by a political party and those in the head office of that party.
Would I be naive to think ukuthi independent candidates wona angeke akhohlakale or they won't be involved in corrupt practices? Ukuthi ke batawuthatha imali yamasipala bayifake ekhikhini esikhundleni sesibawakha emakliniki netibhedlela nemigwaqo. Would I be naive to think that? Ngoba phela at the end of the day umuntu ngumuntu noma ngabe uwedwa uyi-independent candidate noma ngabe you are affiliated to a political party lokusalako umuntu and people fall for such temptations.
No, it will be naive, of course, to believe that. But again, we have a good premise to start on. To say that independent candidates, we believe, will have the interests of the people at heart. You will remember that most of these independent candidates are people who were bona fide nominated by people on the ground. Their names were forwarded out of the conference lists to the head office, to the deployment committees of the political party. But because of internal corruption in political parties, we have seen that those independent candidates, those individuals, their names were sidelined, taken off the list, and hence they felt the need to stand as independent candidates. So these are good people, but also we can look at what stands in the middle between independent candidates and the big parties. It's the small parties in Matatiel, in Vunane, in Merafong. Those are the people who spoke to their political parties and said, we want to belong to this province and not this province. But even after they had expressed their preferences, the political party decided to act against those preferences. Hence, the establishment of new political parties. So that is the genesis of independent candidates, and we rely and hope that when they are elected into office, they will carry on those aspirations of the citizens.
Alright, asibambe lapho ke Nkosikhulule sitawuchubeka futhi nonkulumo yethu emva kwaleli khefu. And Ineke Prinsloo, please stay on the line. We'll definitely touch base with you after this break, and as soon as we come from the break, we're going to come straight to you. Namhlanje kunene sikhuluma ke ngebumcoka belivoti lakho, the power of your vote. Njoba ke sathi ukuthi ke on the 1st of November ke live lonke liya elikhethweni kuvotela ke ama councillors ethu at the local level. Ukuthi ke namhla sikhuluma ngebumcoka belivoti lakho ukuthi are you going to use your vote kwenda sure ukuthi ke lo mgwaqo lo sobhidlikile la uhlala khona noma ke le clinic noma ke sibhedlela lesihohlokile lo muntu otamvotela utasilungisa yini? That's what we're focusing on today. Asasithi ke shwi ngasetitolo siphinde sibuye ke. Sanokela futhi bekunene khumbula ukuthi incingo tethu solo tivuliwe ukuthi nawe ungavakalisa umbono wakho. Call us on our studio line 0117146918 noma ke 0117146919. You can also email your thoughts to consumer@sabc.co.za or alternatively interact with us on our Facebook page. Namhla sina Ineke Prinsloo, the head of customer insights at Consulta Research Group, and as well as Nkosikhulule Nyembezi. He is a he is a policy analyst and as well as an activist and a researcher. He did immense work and researched quite intensively and extensively on the state of local municipalities and basic service delivery. Now, Ineke, I hope you're back with us.
I am back with you.
Okay, all right, welcome back. We really struggled to get you there. But just in hindsight, in terms of juxtaposing people's expectations against the actual delivery of services, where do you think people are failing? Where do you think municipalities and authorities are failing there? Is it because of the augmentation of human capital, or is it simply a scarcity of resources?
So I think if we look at the research, there's three income streams or revenue streams for municipalities. And they get funding from national government, and then they get funding through loans, as any business would have. And then there's the funding from citizens, by paying property taxes, by paying the services charges. And there's a very high expectation. And I think if we each take a step back in the research, actually citizens are customers of the local government. And the local government needs to look at citizens as that revenue stream, that the exchange of value, that they need to deliver on what the citizens are paying for. It's a principle across the world. Whether we are in government or whether we are in a commercial business, if we deliver to a customer, there's an expectation of that value, that money exchange, that something will be delivered. And maybe municipalities, from the research that we see, is overlooking that citizens are their customers. And citizens are saying, for the basics that we're paying for, we really want you to go back to basics and make sure that our needs are fulfilled. During COVID, or the aftermath of COVID, we really saw that people's aspirations, their outlook on us, reduced back to the basics of safety, security, making sure that my health is looked after and that my family is looked after. But that's something that the municipalities need to engage and maybe have a different view on, that what has impacted on the lives of citizens, and where they are paying for services and taxes, that they are our customers, and we need to go back to the basics, and the basics around making sure that I can earn an income, that my family is safe, that I have a shelter, that I have a home. And that's the most important thing, is that gap between the municipalities are and the local government, and where citizens are saying, we are paying for a service that you need to understand is important in our lives.
All right, Ineke, unfortunately, the line is not the best, but we'll try to re-establish connection with you from a much more clearer line. So please make sure that you stay on the line. My colleagues will be in touch with you to establish a much more clearer line so we could continue with our conversation. Now, Nkosikhulule, kulabo ke municipalities where there's been gross, failure of the delivery of services. Labanye abantu they take to the streets, babulale ke properties, babulale nako konke bashisa tikolwa because of their dissatisfaction. So how should we show our dissatisfaction with the leaders noma ke department lethu lesivotele ukuthi naba asijabuli ngato ngitiphi indlela esingatsebenzisa ukukhombisa ukuthi asijabuli vele ngato?
Ivoti lethu lisinikeza ithuba lokuthi sibonise kona lokho, sikhiphe emahhovisi labo sasibavotele abangawenzi umsebenzi, sifake laba sibathandayo abazawenza umsebenzi, sibafaka ngezithembiso abazoziletha kuthina nge-election manifesto, besithembisa okuphathekayo abazothi bakwazi ukwenza ukusukela manje ukuya ngale 5 years. Futhi sikhumbule ukuthi laba sibakhethileyo ukuthi abangene emahhovisi asixhumani nabo kuphela ngesikhathi solunyulo uma kuvotwa kuthiwa kukhona ukhetho, kodwa sikhuluma nabo minyaka yonke ngoba siyazi ukuthi imali ekhishwayo isikhwama sokuthi ibhekelele izidingo zethu ikhishwa minyaka yonke. Ngoko kufanele bona lapho sizobaqoka bamane bebuya bezosilethela imbiko yokuthi imali iminyaka neminyaka bayisebenzisa kanjani, futhi babandakanye involve ekwentweni kwe-plans ney'nhlelo unyaka nonyaka.
Lokusho nangabe uthi asibakhiphe through the ballot njengoba bangena nyalo nga-2021 nangabe asijabuli ngabo for the next 5 years, does that mean ukuthi kumele sime until 2026? Kudeni indlela yokuthi we hold them to account in between the tenure of their councillorship?
Ikhona ngokuthi sibe khona lapha emhlanganweni we-local economic development plans, emihlanganweni ye-infrastructure development plan nako konke. Futhi ke okuhle khona la kohulumeni basekhaya ukuthi uma kukhona i-vacancy ethe yabakhona kuba khona i-by-elections. So uma khona lo ungasiculisi ngoba basebenza ngayo, sisenokukhuluma naye ukuthi esule esikhundleni ngoba kusengaba khona isikhathi sokuthi singene ukhetho lokuchibiyelo, i-by-elections, asiphoqelekile ukuthi sihlale naye kuze kuphele 5 years.
So ngibani ke lonemandla ekukhuluma nabo ukuthi no, they should step aside noma ke bayekele sivotele lomunye ngoba ke labanye they intimidate the voters.
yithi thina abavoti ukuthi sikhulume nabo ukuthi cha sulane esikhundleni ngoba siyabona ukuthi anenti kahle futhi ke siyazi ukuthi uma kukhona i-vacancy eqhamukayo noma iqhamuka ngendaba ye-resignation noma lo besimvotele useshonile siba naso isikhathi ne-opportunity yokuthi sibonise ngokuthi sivotele laba bafunayo noma sishintsha ukuvotela i-political party ethize siyovotela enye uma kuyisikhathi by-elections konke lokho kubonisa ukuthi imfuno zethu zisanelisekile yini okumnandi eSouth Africa yilokho noma sikhuluma ngokuthi yi-local government elections le kodwa ziyafana nokuthi zi-national elections ngoba sivota ngosuku olulodwa sonke silapha kulaba masipala yaye futhi izithembiso esilethelwa zona ziyahambelana ukuthi i-manifestos zilontsha ngesikhathi esodwa zikhuluma kwizidingo zethu sisonke siyakutuca ke lokho kuyinto enhle ngoba kukhombisa khona ukuthi njengoba nje sihambelana namalungelo ethu asemthetho sisekelweni kufanele sonke sitomule kumalungelo noma uhlala ngale komgwaqo noma uhlala ngale komgwaqo ngoba human rights are universal so uma sekufika isikhathi sokuthi sibakhiphe laba kufanele ukuthi sibakhiphe ngokuthi sivotele abanye noma sikhulumisane nabo ukuthi abasole ezikhundleni
ngabe lemiphakathi ke labo masipala bakhona bahohlokile or put simply the collapsed municipalities banaliphi ilithemba lekuthi ke tindvo titawubuyela esimeni lesikahle ngoba ke ikakhulu labo masipala utfole ukuthi kude imigwaco kude gezi kude emanti kude netindlu letincane netikolo tihohlokile abantwana bafundzela ngaphandle ngoba phela nalama councillors nalama independent candidates batakutshela ukuthi thina siyicelile imali uhulumende usitshela ukuthi kude imali so banaliphi elithemba ke lamalunga alawo umphakathi lawo
kufanele baqonde ukuthi imali zisetshenziswa kanjani ngoba i-Auditor General uyasitshela ukuthi kufanele imiphakathi ibandakanyeke kanjani kwindaba yokuthi ikhulumisane nomasipala kufanele ukuthi kuconsultwe kukhulunyiswane nabahlali ukuze kwazi ukusebenziseka le mali i-South African Local Government Association SALGA ekuyiyona inhlangano engumbuthano yabo bonke omasipala iyasibonisa ukuthi kuyini inkinga nezingqinamba ezibhekene omasipala njengoba nje bese ngishilo abanye omasipala abancane uthola ukuthi abakwazi ukuthi bayisebenzise imali sikhona ngoba kudingeka onjinela bazokwakha amabloho nezikole ne-infrastructure njinela labo abangatholakali ngoba bakhetha ukuya komasipala abakhulu abazobanikeza ithenda ezinkulu so kukhona indaba ekhulunywayo malunga nokuthi omasipala abakhulu the metros abanikeze isikhathi badedele omasipala abathize ngonyaka othize khona ukuze omasipala abancane nabo bakwazi ukuthola labantela siyathi ukuthi eNingizimu Afrika kwentuleka i-skills ne-qualified people abazi engineering abazokwazi ukwenza i-infrastructure so ngibuyele kuthini ke abanye omasipala abeni kahle hayi ngoba bengafuni ukuthi bende kahle kodwa ngoba kuntuleka laba ba-qualified abazobasida ukuthi basebenzise izimali siyabona nakwi-auditing nokuphathwa kwezimali uthola ukuthi uqashwa i-consultants ukuthi zenze basic auditing usho njalo u-Auditor General so kufanele ukuthi kubuke kubhekelele ukuthi laba bantu bakhona kulamahhovisi ba-qualified ukuthi bangakwazi ukuthi bayiphathe imali
asishila lapho Nkosikhulule please hold your thoughts we'll continue with this conversation after this break asesisasekele khefule flexina bekunene please do join us after this Welcome to our final segment. Saqhubeka nenzaba yethu namhlanje sikhuluma ngebumcoka belivoti lakho, the power of your vote. Ukuthi do you think your vote is important? Do you think that your vote counts? Namhlanje sina Ineke Prinsloo, the head of customer insight at Consulta Research Group. Kanye ke na Nkosikhulule Nyembezi. He's a policy analyst and as well as an activist. Now Ineke, I hope you're back with us. Now in terms of taking our leaders to account, how do we take our leaders at the public at the public office level to account just to make sure that they deliver on the basic services?
So I think it's in the engagement. The first point of departure is in the engagement and engaging on different platforms, inclusive of social media, inclusive of surveys, and making sure that we mark the scorecards for leaders. based on what citizens are expecting. And that's one of the reasons we're doing the customer or the citizen satisfaction. It's really accounting and making sure that we hold those that we put into local government accountable to deliver on what we are paying for that services. What is extremely important is the engagement and making sure that there's constructive engagement with local government around the points of departure. We need to fix together. I actually had a conversation with business leaders a couple of days ago and saying that, we need to all work together on brand South African. How do we make sure that we participate, be part of as the nation building? And it starts with local government. It starts with citizens. And we need to all make sure that we fix what is not working right now before we aspire to the next level. And that's part of the engagement. The next thing is that we make sure we have leaders that are accountable for partnership with public participation and be part of that process. It doesn't help that there's platforms for public participation, but we don't take up on those opportunities. And then we've got to, as local government or the responsible entities, make sure that we get our priorities right, that governance is first priority, and that we do responsible budgeting, and we make sure that we deliver on what citizens are asking. And the last thing, it's about people first, putting leaders in the leadership position that really engage and demonstrate that it's people first, and that they've got and that they make efforts to restore the trust and confidence of citizens in terms of that service delivery.
Ineke, what you just said, that people first, I suppose, is what underscores the elections, be it the national level, be it at the local level, because at the end of the day, the councillors and, those mayoral candidates, they are canvassing for the rights of the people. Now, Nkosikhulule, what is it that people should know
kufanele bayazi what the election promises are, because the ingredients of the mandate that we give to candidates is based on the election promises and the strength of those election promises in terms of what is it that they are going to do for our communities. They must know the mandate of the local sphere of government to say that municipalities and local government are constitutionally recognized structures and they have got a mandate to exercise. So these things that speak to our health and our livelihoods, whether we are shebeen's queens, whether we are hair salon owners, whether we are taxi drivers, talk to the bylaws that the municipalities implement and the regulations, and in the manner in which they implement those, they must not trample on our livelihood as we know it. Because the difference now is that it's confirmed by Statistics South Africa that over 50% of people who are supposed to be working are not working. So those people rely on informal economy and informality. So it means we have changed the way we derive our livelihood. And so in these elections, the candidates must speak to that, and the elected officials, when they get into office, they must speak to that. We are governed by informality.
So from what you've gathered, Nkosikhulule, the crisis service delivery ikuphi? Kulama metro lamakhulu noma ke kulabo masipala labancane in the small towns, which means government yena ke nakakhipha ke imali, le budget angayinika imali, angayinika ema metro noma ke ema municipalities lamancane at the local level.
The problem is everywhere. Small, medium, and large municipalities. Also because the corruption that is strangling service delivery affects all municipalities. We will know that the rating agencies in South Africa downgraded South Africa in terms of its ability to get loans and to service those loans. So even municipalities in areas like the Western Cape, where it is seen that they are compliant with accounting procedures, they have also been downgraded because the people who live in those municipalities have high unemployment rate and they are seen as not being able to pay for the services that the municipality will provide. So it is a problem that cut across and it must be addressed by all South Africans working together.
All right, Nkosikhulule, siyabonga kakhulu ukuhlanganyela nathi, and Ineke Prinsloo, it's great chatting to you. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. Bukele sesifike kanjalo maphethelene nehlelo lethu. Ngithanza ukubonga ivakashi lethu ngesikhathi labasinike sona ke namhlanje. Phindze kubonga kanye nani babukele ngekuba nathi kuze kube ngimanje. Please join us again next time for yet another consumer affairs discussion. From me Simphiwe Ngongwane and the rest of the team, sizinisale kahle, wishing you a great week. Cheers.
Yilungelo.